In this video, we are going to walk you through how to calculate your seller transfer tax bill in New York City using Hauseit's transfer tax calculator, which is available on Hauseit.com. So the purpose of the calculator is to help you estimate as a seller what would be your transfer tax bill when closing. Closing costs are a very important consideration for sellers in the city, primarily because seller closing costs are really high. Now, the largest component of seller closing costs is the broker commission of 6%. There are a number of ways you can reduce or eliminate that, including listing through an Agent Assisted FSBO flat fee model or considering a 1% full service option. You can learn about both of those by using the drop downs here under sellers. You have full service for 1% as well as Agent Assisted FSBO. Going back to the transfer tax calculator, we have on the right here a hypothetical output for a sale price of $1.5 million for a condominium. Now, there's a couple of components of the transfer taxes in the city. Technically, there are three components. The first component is the New York State transfer tax, payable by sellers. This is collected by the people up in Albany, so think New York State. Again, the capital is collecting this money, and it applies to any sale in New York State. There are two transfer tax rates for New York State. The more common one is 0.4%, and there's actually a newer transfer tax rate, a slightly higher rate of 0.65%, which is for sales of $3 million or more. This higher rate was actually enacted in 2019 as part of changes to the New York tax law. One thing to mention about the higher rate of 0.65%, it does also apply to commercial transactions as well as townhouses or homes with 4 or more units, but it actually kicks in at a lower threshold of $2 million for these types of deals compared to $3 million for your customary condo, co-op, and 1 to 3 family transaction. The second component of transfer taxes for sellers is the New York City transfer tax. Again, here there are also two rates. There is a more common rate of 1.425%, which applies to sale prices of 500K or more, rather above 500K, and there's a lower transfer tax rate of 1% for anything less than or equal to 500K. Now, given where sale prices are today, it's going to be more common for you to see a transfer tax rate of 1.425%. But let's play around and show you a few examples. So let's say you're selling a $350,000 condominium in Bed-Stuy. In this case, the lower New York City transfer tax rate of 1% will apply. Now, if we go to 500,000, as you'll see here, we still have the lower tax rate of 1%. But the moment we go above 500K, you're going to see that there's a higher transfer tax rate of 1.425%. Now, as far as the New York State transfer tax is concerned, the threshold there is $3 million as to when that rate goes up to 0.65%. So let's go ahead and test that and start with something that is $2.5 million. You'll see here that the transfer tax rate is still the lower 0.4%. If we take this up to $3 million, you'll see that we go to the higher rate of 0.65%. Now, in terms of the transfer tax itself, we've talked about the New York State component and the New York City component, but there's also another transfer tax that comes into play for sale prices of $1 million or more, which is called the mansion tax. The mansion tax is not customarily referred to a transfer tax, primarily because sellers pay transfer taxes and buyers pay the mansion tax. But because this is a transfer tax calculator, we felt it was appropriate to include the mansion tax here just for your own analysis. So if you look at this example, the seller is going to be paying a total of 2.05%, which is the New York State transfer tax and the New York City transfer tax, and the buyer is going to be paying that mansion tax of 1.5%. So the total transfer taxes are a little over 100K for this property, and the majority of them are going to be paid by the seller. As far as the mansion tax is concerned, we do have another calculator for buyers, which will help you more accurately determine your mansion tax bill. But just as a quick summary, we have 8 different tax brackets for the mansion tax in New York City as of 2019. The highest rate is 3.9%. which applies to sales of $25 million or more. So as you can see here, we raise that sale price and the mansion tax rate goes up to its maximum. The sale price of $1 million to $2 million is going to be affected by a 1% mansion tax rate. So whether we're at 1 million or 1.4 million, doesn't really matter. The mansion tax rate is still going to be 1%. So looking more broadly at closing costs for sellers, the transfer taxes are going to be some of the highest components of your total seller closing cost bill. But for more information on that, we can go to the seller closing cost calculator. And here we can actually plug in the same scenario. So let's put in a $1.4 million condo. And let us see what closing costs we have here. So the total closing costs are going to be over 8%, a lot of money, obviously. The transfer taxes are here. These are the ones we calculated on the other calculator. And as you can see, the bulk of the closing costs really come in the form of the broker commission. Commissions are really high in New York City. They've been high for a very long time. There's a number of reasons why, but presumably as a seller, the goal is to figure out how to minimize them. Fortunately, there are a few options out there. You can possibly list through an Agent Assisted FSBO, which is more of a do-it-yourself option. Gives you the exposure and marketing breadth and reach as if you hired a listing agent, but it allows you to run the sale process, allows you to save up to 6% if the buyer does not have a buyer agent. Another option, if you have less time, you could consider the 1% full service option. Gives you the same indistinguishable approach to a sale transaction as if you hired a traditional agent. You're just paying a lot less. So there's a number of options out there to save some money. Would certainly encourage you to do so, because anything you pay out in closing costs obviously takes away from capital gains. It reduces the amount of money you can reinvest into possibly a larger home, or certainly takes away the possibility to invest that money in the stock market to grow your net worth over time. Final reminder, a couple other calculators here if you are selling. If you want to figure out your co-op's flip tax calculator, you can use that to calculate your bill. There's also a co-op tax deduction calculator. Oftentimes your listing agent will ask you what the tax deduction percentage is for your listing. So by way of example, you can actually go to that calculator and, using the information provided by your managing agent, the real estate tax deduction per share and the mortgage interest deduction per share, you can calculate the tax deduction percentage for your listing. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Otherwise, we wish you the best of luck, and we hope you can find a way to keep that closing cost bill down, and best of luck with the overall sale.